Welcome to Plot 27. An American woman named Greta is riding a traditional taxi in England. She arrives at a large and isolated house surrounded by forest, the house of the Heelshire family. The driver wakes Greta and tells her that the family has gone out for a while. He then says that the Heelshires asked Greta to wait in the living room. Greta enters the house and takes off her shoes. She then hears noises coming from upstairs. Greta calls out to see if anyone is there, but when no one answers, she decides to check. She hesitantly goes up the stairs a little and calls out again. Along the staircase hangs a huge painted family portrait of the Heelshires. It's clear they are a very regal family. Greta then enters a room full of antique toys. She picks up a toy and starts playing with it, but is startled when a man suddenly appears behind her. The man is Malcolm, a grocer who delivers to the Heelshire family every week. After introductions, Malcolm explains that he comes from a family of fortune tellers. His grandmother reads tea leaves, his mother reads palms, and Malcolm reads chewing gum. Malcolm asks for the gum Greta is chewing and says he sees a dark past. Hearing this, Greta quickly changes the subject and asks what the Heelshire family is like. According to Malcolm, they are a kind and generous family. Greta then asks about the child she will be caring for, Brahms. Malcolm looks confused about how to explain, but their conversation is cut short by the arrival of Mrs. Heelshire. She doesn't look kindly on Greta and immediately notices her socked feet. Greta says she left her shoes by the door, and not wanting to upset Mrs. Heelshire, she runs to get them. Greta is confused when her shoes go missing. Mrs. Heelshire says it was Brahms playing a prank and tells Greta to wear another pair. Mrs. Heelshire then introduces Greta to her husband, and Greta laughs when she realizes Brahms is actually a porcelain doll. Her laughter stops when Mr. and Mrs. Heelshire give her a very serious look. Greta grows more confused as Malcolm shakes the doll's hand and talks to it. Malcolm then says goodbye and promises to return next week. Despite feeling uneasy, Greta reluctantly holds the doll's hand, hoping they can be friends. Mrs. Heelshire explains that they have tried several babysitters, but Brahms rejects them all. Greta's job is to wake Brahms at 7 a.m. and dress him. Brahms has 3 hours of lessons 5 days a week, and Mrs. Heelshire wants to start with some poetry reading. She also says Brahms likes opera music. After dinner, Mrs. Heelshire tells Greta they don't throw out leftover food but keep it in special containers. Mr. Heelshire takes Greta on a tour to check the mouse traps, worried that the mice might get inside the house since Brahms doesn't like animals. Mr. Heelshire understands that Greta feels strange but says Brahms is there with them. Greta sees the family praying and putting Brahms to bed, but Mrs. Heelshire tells Greta to close the door because they want to talk privately with Brahms. Mrs. Heelshire leaves the room and says Brahms wants Greta and has chosen her to care for him. In her room, Greta talks to her sister Sandy. Greta tells her about the strange things she's experiencing and that she's staying in a large and isolated house with no neighbors. The house has windows that don't open, and there's no phone or Wi-Fi signal. Sandy tells Greta to stay calm since she's only babysitting a doll. Sandy agrees it's weird, but says Greta should stick with it because she needs this second chance. Sandy then mentions that Cole stopped by her house again, demanding to know where Greta is. Greta panics, but Sandy says she didn't tell him anything, obviously someone from Greta's troubled past. The next day, Greta sees Mrs. Heelshire scolding Brahms. Mr. Heelshire then tells Greta that he and his wife will be going on vacation and asks her to watch Brahms. While they're gone, Greta must follow the schedule and rules Mrs. Heelshire set. Before leaving, Mr. Heelshire advises Greta to be kind to Brahms, and Brahms will be kind to her. Greta feels uneasy when Mrs. Heelshire cries and whispers an apology. After the couple leaves, Greta, feeling scared, and covers Brahms with a blanket. That night, Greta feels uneasy because the blanket covering Brahms is open. She quickly grabs the doll and throws it roughly onto a chair. Greta wakes up from sleep hearing a child crying. She slowly lights a candle and leaves the room to investigate. She stops in front of the Heelshire family portrait, but suddenly a hand grabs her. Greta wakes up from a nightmare. She goes to Brahms's room and sees the doll in the exact spot from her dream. Greta approaches Brahms and sees what looks like tears running down the doll's face, but it's actually water leaking from the ceiling. When she leaves the room, Greta notices the attic hatch but can't open it. Malcolm arrives to collect leftover food and deliver Greta's first paycheck. He tells Greta the story behind the doll. In 1991, there was a fire and Brahms couldn't get out. The tragedy happened on Brahms's birthday, and the doll appeared shortly after. The Heelshire family has cared for the doll for 20 years, and Brahms would be Malcolm's age if he were still alive. Greta is picking out clothes as Malcolm invites her to explore the town, but she feels uneasy because Brahms seems to be watching her. While Greta is showering, the bathroom door suddenly opens. Something pulls on Greta's dress left on a chair and her necklace. Greta, looking in the mirror, is shocked to see her hair appears cut and her belongings are missing. She rushes to her room and finds all her drawers and clothes opened. Terrified, she leaves her room and notices the attic hatch is open. Greta climbs into the attic to investigate, but the door suddenly shuts. Greta hears Malcolm's car and screams for help, but Malcolm doesn't hear her. Feeling alone, Malcolm leaves. Greta is startled when a figure suddenly appears before her, causing her to fall and lose consciousness. The next morning, Greta wakes up and realizes the figure was just a coat hanging on the wall. The attic door is open, and Greta finds the Heelshire family photo album. Greta tells Malcolm that she was locked in the attic last night, but the attic stairs went up and closed on their own. Malcolm stays with Greta to keep her safe, and they discuss Brahms again. Malcolm says rumors circulate that Brahms is very strange. One night, Malcolm was delivering to the house and didn't know it was Brahms's birthday. Mrs. Heelshire opened presents with the doll in the living room while Mr. Heelshire was drunk. Malcolm, accompanying Mr. Heelshire, asked what Brahms really looked like, but Mr. Heelshire only replied with one word, strange. Sandy tells Greta that her 10-year-old son told Cole that Greta is in England. Greta sees a shadow pass by while brushing her teeth. She goes to Brahms's room and sees papers scattered around, but realizes she was only dreaming. Greta then enters Brahms's room and sees the doll sitting on the bed. The phone rings, and Greta answers it, growing more frightened as a child's voice invites her out to play and asks why she isn't following the rules. Greta sees the Brahms doll standing outside the room. Slowly, she opened the door and sees her favorite bread. Confused, Greta goes back into Brahms's room and reads the rules Mrs. Heelshire made. Malcolm calls and Greta shares the strange experiences she's having. Meanwhile, Mrs. Heelshire writes a letter to Brahms, apologizing for leaving him, and at the bottom of the letter, it says the girl is yours now. Mr. and Mrs. Heelshire go to the beach and put stones in their pockets. They hold hands and drown themselves. Over the next few days, Greta cares for Brahms and following the list of rules. She makes breakfast, plays music in the study, reads poetry, and puts him to bed. Malcolm comes early with food and sees Greta playing piano with Brahms. He invites her out that night, but Greta declines, saying she can't leave Brahms alone. After Malcolm leaves, Greta tries talking to Brahms, but the doll remains silent. Greta throws away leftover food, but Brahms suddenly moves. Greta asks Malcolm to come back, saying she needs to show him the strange incident she just experienced. Greta places the doll on the floor and draws a chalk line around it, then both leave the room. After knocking on the wall, Malcolm and Greta return to the room, but the doll is still inside the chalk circle. Malcolm thinks Greta is hallucinating, but she asks for one more chance. Greta tells Brahms to move or she will leave. They both step outside again, and Malcolm hears knocking from inside. They rush back, only to find Brahms missing. Greta spontaneously hugs Malcolm, but Brahms is watching them from behind the door. Greta reveals her past with Cole, who was abusive and caused her to lose her baby during pregnancy. She understands the Heelshire's grief since they also lost a child. Greta invites Malcolm to her room, unaware someone is watching them through the keyhole. They hear music playing and rush downstairs to find Brahms sitting in the study. Greta senses Brahms is unhappy and quickly takes him back to the room. Worried, Malcolm urges Greta to stay in town, but she refuses because she promised the Heelshires to care for Brahms. Malcolm then tells the story from 20 years ago about a little girl from town named Emily Cribbs who visited weekly to play with Brahms. On her birthday, Emily went out and never returned, and police later found her body in the woods. They contacted the Heelshires to question Brahms, but when they arrived, the house was already on fire. The Heelshires escaped, but Brahms was burned inside, and the killer was never found. Despite the story, Greta refuses to leave, confident Brahms won't hurt her. After putting Brahms to bed, Greta goes to the attic to look at the family photo album and sees a photo of Brahms with Emily. While preparing breakfast, Greta hears billiard balls and finds Cole playing. Cole says he got a new job and wants Greta to come home, but Malcolm's arrival makes things tense. After Malcolm leaves, Cole apologizes for his past behavior, but Greta is still traumatized and unable to forgive him. Greta wakes up to hear Cole shouting angrily downstairs. She goes down and sees rat carcasses from the traps and a bloody message on the wall that reads "Get out." Cole is confused when Greta says it might be Brahms. Malcolm hasn't left and rushes inside after hearing Greta scream. Malcolm tries to take Brahms from Cole, but Cole destroys the doll. Immediately, the house walls move and the three hear strange noises. Cole hears something behind the mirror. Suddenly, the mirror shatters and something bursts from the walls. Greta and Malcolm see a masked man emerge from the mirror. It's Brahms, who is still alive. Brahms kills Cole for destroying the doll, and Greta and Malcolm try to escape. Greta finds a hidden panel in the wall, and they escape through a secret passage. Greta finds stairs leading up to a small room beside the attic. It's old and has a fridge and rough living conditions. On the bed lies a life-size fabric doll wearing Greta's missing coral dress and jewelry, with locks of her hair attached to the head. Greta finds Mrs. Heelshire's letter to Brahms and realizes the couple isn't coming back. They left her to care for Brahms forever. Greta and Malcolm flee the room as Brahms chases them. Malcolm tells Greta to go out first while he holds Brahms off, but Brahms beats him unconscious. At the gate, Greta suddenly turns back to save Malcolm. Greta grabs a letter opener from her drawer as a weapon and confronts Brahms. Greta tells Brahms she won't leave him and orders Brahms to sleep. She acts as if nothing is wrong and cares for Brahms like she did the doll. Brahms obeys and lies down. Greta tries to leave, but Brahms asks for a goodnight kiss. As she leans in, Greta stabs him with the letter opener. Furious, Brahms attacks her, but Greta manages to push the weapon deeper. Greta rescues Malcolm, and they both finally manage to leave the house. In the final scene, Brahms is shown alive, reassembling his doll, and the movie ends. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel.